In this episode, Claire Chiang and I have a conversation in Singapore about how flower elixirs have become a more meaningful life and can unlock possibilities beyond your imagination. Welcome to the Flower Lounge, a place for conversations with wildly creative people and a little plant-loving wisdom to help you experience life in full bloom. I'm Katie Hess, flower alchemist and founder of LOTUSWEI, and I believe in a world where we're all living at our personal edge. Welcome to the Flowerlounge Podcast. I am sitting here in Singapore, one of my favorite places, with one of my favorite people, Claire Chiang, who lives here in Singapore. And she's recently actually joined our team in LOTUSWEI. We've known each other for a few years, so it is my absolute pleasure to be sitting here with you, Claire. Yay!
Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
If any of you follow us on social media, you might have seen our recent adventures through Little India. Claire took us to Little India in Singapore. It was a fabulous experience, listening to music and smelling all the jasmine and eating yummy food. Yeah, and now we're just working together and exploring the ways that we can reach the world with flower elixirs. So we thought we'd bring you an interesting interview, turn the tables a little bit. Claire's going to ask me some questions. I'm going to ask her questions, and we'll just have a really great conversation about all things flowers and earth and stuff.
Crazy.
Maybe I'll just rewind really quick. About 2.5 years ago, I was in Singapore before, and I had just launched the book in New York and LA and Phoenix, and I had come to Singapore. It was December?
Yeah.
So we did another book launch party, just like drop into a country where you don't know hardly anyone. And what stuck out to me was that Claire, this person who had been working with our flower elixirs for some time, she just like showed up and volunteered and helped and made flower mandalas and was just like such a huge support. So it's always nice to be received in that way when you go to a place that you don't know anyone. And since then, we've just stayed in touch over social media. And then, like we said, you recently joined our team. Is there anything that you want to share just in general from your experience working with flower essences, or, anything about yourself here in Singapore, or what your vision is?
So I started taking flower elixirs, LOTUSWEI flower elixirs in 2015. I found out about LOTUSWEI through Instagram. I mean, I was actually I wasn't looking for flower elixirs. I didn't even know what flower elixirs were, or flower essences were for that matter. I was basically trying to switch out my skincare from like the mainstream stuff to like more natural, organic, green beauty basically. And for some reason, your products kept showing up on my feed. And I'm like, what are these little colored bottles? And so then after a while I got curious because they kept showing up, right? So, I mean, the universe obviously was made our paths cross. So then I clicked and I was really curious, and I was like thinking to myself, wow, this is intriguing. I want to try this. And then the next thought, they're based in the US. I can't get it in Singapore, but I Googled, and to my surprise, there was a retailer in Singapore that had it. So I immediately ordered a bunch of stuff, and I fell in love. And gosh, I can't even, it's really hard to describe like how much has changed and shifted since I started taking the flower elixirs. I think one of the first things that I noticed was after I started taking inner peace. So it was lunchtime, and I wanted to eat Korean food. So I went to my favorite restaurant, and I went up, and of course I was by myself. So I said, can I have a table for one? And they obviously had space, but the person, the wait staff said, oh, sorry, we're full. And so usually the old me would have been pissed. And I mean, I may not have voiced it out because it's not my nature to kick up a scene, but I would have thought some bad things. But in that moment, I was just like, oh, okay. And then I just walked off and thought to myself, okay, I'll find something else to eat. And And then I caught myself, it was kind of like observing, I was in that state of like observing my own like behavior. And I thought, this is not normal. I don't normally behave like that. And then, because the mind is funny, right? Like you're so used to acting a certain way. It's like suddenly you have a peaceful moment, but then the mind goes, wait, this is not normal. Like who doesn't want peace? But you're like, I don't normally react this way. And so it was a really interesting observation. And I started having more of these little moments of awareness that pop up, like as I continued taking the elixirs. And then I think things really shifted for me when I joined the Flower Evolution program. So the Flower Evolution, do you want to talk a little bit about what?
No, go for it.
Okay, so the Flower Evolution program is a 6-month transformation program where we get a single flower elixir that Katie intuitively picks out, and it's in a particular sequence, and I don't know, it's just magic. Like, so each single flower elixir targets a particular issue that, we're working through, and it can bring up things that to the surface that need to be shifted or dissolved or, transformed. And so for those of you who don't know, I still have my full-time job, right? And for a long time, I think it was progressively over the years, I've been feeling really stuck and in this kind of, I don't know, it's like, the feeling of being stuck in mud. Like, it's so hard to it's like I can't even move my feet. And life felt really monotonous. And yeah, life felt really just hard. And so I was in Japan on holiday, and I received a text from my sister one morning, and it was like, she was super excited, and it was like in all caps, and she was telling me that LOTUSWEI had a job application open. And the first thing I thought of was, oh, I can't apply because, something like that only happens for someone else, right? And and that, it's obviously open for someone in the US, in Phoenix. And I didn't think that, it would be an opportunity that would be open for me. But then I continued reading her message, and she said, it's a virtual position, and, they're open to a virtual candidate. And I don't know, in that moment, something just lit up inside of me. It was like, kind of like a fire, right? And I just felt like, oh my gosh, like this is it. Like I need to apply. And up until that point, I never felt motivated to kind of put myself out there to try for something else, because honestly, I didn't know what I wanted. And there wasn't enough of a pull, like for me to do something, right? And in that moment, I was just thinking, oh my gosh, because for a long time, because my sister's also taking the flower elixirs, and we always joke, right? I would say, oh, like it'll be a dream to work for LOTUSWEI. And I never thought that it would happen. I think a lot of it has to do with my belief system, right? About possibilities and around things happening for me. Like it always seems like it's going to happen for someone else, but not for me. And so I put my CV together. Everything happened within a week. Like the minute I landed in Singapore, I started working on it. I sent it in. And the first thing I did was to write in and say, when you say virtual, I mean it's fun, right? Because there's all this self-doubt, and I'm not sure who replied. It might be a little kid, but the person on the other end was equally as sick as I was. And I don't know, it felt so good, right? Like there was this, like, oh my God, someone's excited that I'm applying. And I was just like, oh, like a dance party for myself. I was just so happy. And things unfolded so quickly. like, I think within a month, like that was it. And I became part of the LOTUSWEI team. And for me, I feel like it's a testament to how flower elixirs have transformed my life. I mean, when I first started taking them, it doesn't seem like anything is happening, but you're just putting, I'm just putting one foot the other, right? And sometimes it feels like I'm going nowhere. But then when I look back and see how like the insecurities, these hardwired like belief systems that I've had, thinking that like, oh, there's someone else that's more suited and better for this job. And all of that kind of, it's not like they go away. They never do fully go away, but it's having that courage to say, you know what, I'll try, and to kind of really just believe. And I feel like the Flower Evolution program really helped to slowly chip away those layers for me. Yeah.
It's funny because we were like hoping and praying that you would apply for that position. So everyone on the team was like, I hope Claire applies. I hope Claire applies. So it's funny when you have, you're looking for each other, and it's really fortuitous. We're really grateful to have you. And, for the listeners, Claire has like a super successful job. She works full time. It's not like you were sitting on your bum, like looking for something, like, what should I do? You're like extremely successful here in Singapore. And so it's probably a story that a lot of people can relate to.
Yeah. Sharing that story just kind of gets me a little bit emotional. Yeah. Because it's been a struggle for me. Yeah. But I think a lot of people can relate to, it may not be the same story, maybe something else in their life, right? And just going back to the Flower Evolution program, like, which is what I love about it, is that there is a community of people who are so dedicated and devoted to their own awakening and transforming and their personal growth and evolution. And we're all in it to like support each other, like, and that group energy is just amplified. It's just amazing.
Yeah, there are people from around the world in the Flower Evolution, and I think probably everyone can relate to that feeling of like not knowing a lot of people who are into the same things that they are, especially if your number one priority is awakening. It's kind of a rare thing.
Yeah.
A low percentage of folks who are really into that. Probably everyone on the podcast listening can relate. So yeah, it's nice to meet other people in other corners of the world who are really committed to that kind of personal growth.
Shall I ask you some questions?
Sure. Ask away.
Okay. I'm curious about your Tibetan Buddhist practice. And because I know that, something that you've shared, like that's come up. And I'd love to hear more about how your Tibetan Buddhist practice has shaped you as a person, as a flower alchemist, and your business. I know it's quite a big question, but I just want to hear like your story.
I never expected that I would be Tibetan Buddhist. I know that I sometimes share the story, when I was 7 years old, I was looking for the people, like looking for my people, and wondered why I was stuck in this little body in this little town. And I needed to do important things. And here I was stuck, kind of like what you were just talking about. And it wasn't until fast forward 24 years, or, I was 24 years old, 24 minus 7, that I saw this string of monks, of men in red robes with shaved heads. And I had this like visceral sensation in my body of like, oh my God, where have you guys been all my life? This is what I was looking for. But it also simultaneously like, what am I thinking? I don't even know what this is. Like, I'm not a religious person. I'm very, open, and I'm not like in any rigid path. And anyway, long story short, I discovered that Buddhism was like a method. So like, rather than being like a religion, it's a method of like how to get from point A to point B. And within that path, I met a lot of teachers and masters from mostly Asia who showed me what is possible as a human being when you meditate for long periods of time. What happens when you meditate alone in a cave for 3 years? What kinds of things can happen? What's the capacity of the mind? What's the capacity of compassion? Something that my friend Lisa Reinhardt always likes to say is that in the West, we focused a lot of energy on technology, like external technology and digital technology. And in the East, there's been more focus traditionally on the capacity of the human mind and heart. And so, you know, if you read the stories, there are seemingly miraculous things that can happen. And there are experiences that have just been undeniably life-changing for me, in the sense of this is what is possible for a human being. That, you know, they're so powerful that you walk into a room and it changes you on some molecular level. So seeing that was a huge inspiration, created a huge desire for doing anything that I possibly could to lead every human being to their full capacity. And then in general, in Tibetan Buddhism, there's like a commitment to a daily meditation practice, you know, which is just generally around breathing or being aware, mindful and aware, committing to being a better and better person every day, committing to becoming your own best friend, committing to noticing where you get tripped up and what your patterns are, and applying compassion and love to yourself and others. All the things that we like to talk about. So that became the foundation or the ground for the business. Compassion, love, kindness, understanding. And that also fuels like inseparability or interconnectedness with all beings, if that makes sense. It's kind of a long answer.
Love it.
So there are different branches like Hinayana, Mahayana, Vajrayana, 3 branches. So Hinayana is what typically you see like in Thailand, where you have the monks who are not allowed to touch women.
Okay.
Like very, very specialized and awesome at discipline.
Right.
Like self-discipline, which is very, very important. Mahayana is the second branch. It's sort of like where it gets introduced of like loving kindness and wishing for whatever we do to benefit all beings everywhere. Sort of like thinking about others versus just like me on my own path.
Yeah.
So loving kindness is kind of like this overflowing forte of that branch. Vajrayana that's kind of where they call crazy wisdom comes in. You see a lot more examples of teachers just kind of like doing whatever it takes for people to wake up, being more radical, being more loud, making people laugh, doing things kind of in an opposite way, because sometimes shocking. Those probably aren't the best descriptions, but just sort of like a casual, informal. I would say most of Asia is like Hinayana, so very focused on discipline and devotion. Yeah. Okay. Does that answer?
Yeah. I'm just really fascinated. Yeah. And so how has your Tibetan Buddhist practice, does it in any way like influence the way in which you do the flower collection? You know, in comparison, because how do other like flower essence practitioners like, is there only one way of collecting flower essences, and like how does it differ, and how has your practice shaped, or influenced it in that sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way is typically similar, and it's a very simple process. What makes it different is like the vastness of intentionality around it. And so, you know, anybody can just like pluck a few flowers and throw them in a bowl of water, right? But it's different when there is a really profound, not only intention, but body of experience behind that intention that gives depth and power to it, that would create all the difference. So when you say has my personal practice affected, absolutely 100%, because I've done a daily meditation practice for almost 20 years now. So that has to affect. And I believe that anything I create or that comes out of me, whether it's business, products, things, it can only be as good as I am. and stop. Any company can only be as good as the person at the top, period.
Right.
So the more that I can focus on improving myself, the better everything that comes out of me will be. And it's not easy. It's like running your business like it's your spiritual path.
Yeah.
Everything will come up in your face. But that's what I'm committed to. And I think it affects every part of the business.
Yeah.
And in terms of flower essence collection, it would be trying to think of a metaphor. It's kind of like, maybe this isn't the best metaphor, but like, let's say you took a course in Japan on how to sharpen swords, for example. After the weekend is over, you might have a good, working understanding of like what tools to use and what grain and all that stuff. It's like no comparison with somebody who has been doing it for 50 years, every day, every single day, day in, day out. They know all the different qualities of the metals. They know all the different qualities of, like physics of, like how it's been used and how age and time. And so I'm speaking of it as if it's like an intellectual process, but it's not. It's more like a felt experience.
Yeah. It's like you live it.
Exactly.
It just permeates through everything that you do. I don't know. That's how I feel about everything about you and all the flower elixirs. It feels different from what I've tried. I've tried other flower essences. I mean, even before trying it, like just looking at it, you can, for me, I don't know how other people are, but I like to get a sensation in my body and to kind of have this feeling of like a connection, Yeah. And everything you do is just filled with so much love and devotion and intention, and it's really beautiful.
To answer the other part of your question, I don't know what other flower essence practitioners do. I honestly, I don't know any really closely. I know that probably anyone who does it is a really special person. Maybe they have similar practices, but I always will make offerings to the plant and to the earth. I always ask permission to take the flower. Most times I'll let either the environment, the place, or the plants know that I'm coming at least 24 to 48 hours in advance, sometimes weeks in advance.
Yeah.
Like just in my practice, I'm coming. This is my intention. This is what I'd like to do, So there's like a clear relationship developed.
Yeah.
And then of course my intention is always like from day one, like from the first collection trip in Canada that I did, it was like, how many people am I going to impact in the next 10 to 20 years? Like those people that I will come in contact with, what do they need? What flowers do they need? What new like weird things will arise in the future that we'll want to find flower antidotes for? So those are the kinds of things that are in my heart when I'm collecting. It's just like total openness and neutrality of who I will reach and what they need.
Yeah.
And, this understanding that there really is no fixed like time space continuum, right? We can have it's stretchy, it's elastic.
Yeah. So do you normally have like an idea of what you want to collect? I mean, I just
sometimes sometimes I get a bug in my butt about a particular flower. Like in the last few years I've gotten really interested in like really rare and hard to find orchids. For some reason I needed a challenge, I guess. So I would find some super rare orchid in Iceland, and then we'd spend 10 days trying to find it, or super rare orchid in southern Minnesota or in the plains of the United States or in Costa Rica, and then the challenge of finding it. Other times it's more just like listening to the animals and showing, like in Taiwan, the dragonflies showing us what flowers to collect. And then just keeping firm in my intention, above all else. Like, for example, being in Taiwan, I'd really like to find some wild orchids. We got this book of over 400 types of wild we get there and it's like, there are no orchids. What are you going to do, right? I can't introduce my ego. And if the people who I will serve, based on that, don't need orchids, then no need. Get something else, right?
Yeah. I love that. I was following the stories that you've been sharing, and the one with the crazy rain, and oh my god, and you're holding, that was scary, that like a small rope. Yeah. And I think flower collecting is not as glamorous as people.
Oh, certainly not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we could tell you all kinds of stories. You can listen to the podcast that we did with Taylor, and mosquitoes and eating hot dogs at 7-Eleven, which by the way are really good, but things like that. But it's an honor and a service.
Yeah,
it's kind of a crazy adventure. I like it.
I love it. Okay, so you've been doing this work for a long time. I mean, your meditation practice, collecting flower essences, and I'm just curious, what are some of the changes that you have seen over the last 2 decades with regards to people's receptivity?
I think people just thought I was crazy. Like, you work with the energy of flowers and what? Like what? People were very apt to believe that crystals had energy, but to make the jump that something living in the ground, like a flower, had energy was a big jump. In the West. In the East, it's a whole different story. Right. You all over here understand that living things all have chi and life force, and that's like really woven into the culture.
Yeah.
In the West, it's a totally different story. Flowers and botanicals can be a bit of a background. It's like a background wallpaper.
Right.
So in the beginning, people were not very open at all, actually, and it was tough going.
Yeah.
Now, things like yoga are super powerful, or, trendy. Meditation is now cool, whereas 20 years ago, nobody really wanted to talk about it.
Yeah.
I think that we're in a position where people are experiencing enough kind of stress.
Yeah.
That they're looking actively for solutions. Like half the population in the US can't sleep. So many of us are like distracted and, minds going a mile a minute. And so we start looking for natural alternatives.
Yeah.
So I think people are wildly open in terms of the business and LOTUSWEI.
Yeah.
We used to lead a little bit more with aromatherapy because we work with both. That was like a nice bridge.
Yeah.
And now in the last 2 years or so, it's like the landscape of our customers totally changed.
Yeah.
And our community wants elixirs.
Yeah.
And they want personal growth. And they want all of those things. The nice smells and the sensuous and all that is like nice. Yeah. Everybody loves that. But they're looking for the deeper stuff, which is fun.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking about the people that I know that take your flower elixirs. I mean, they do like the scent element of it, and they do have those products, but I noticed that their go-to is always the elixirs and everything else. It's interesting because I would have thought that people would gravitate more towards like the mist, and which I love.
And they used to.
Yeah. Yeah, which they're used to, because aromatherapy is like huge and everyone knows what aromatherapy is. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I think the more that people experience it for themselves, the more they have proof. In the US, people are very skeptical. People feel like you might have snake oil, or
what? Okay,
they're afraid of being like a fool,
right?
Like they're afraid of being taken,
right?
So, and Westerners are also big on like science and studies and is it scientifically proven and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I think as more and more of a population of people just like tries it for themselves, each individual knows for themselves their own personal experience.
Yeah.
And then things kind of start to spread like wildfire.
Yeah. I think that's the best way for someone to experience it for themselves, because your own experience is what is most powerful. right? We all experience it differently. Yeah. Okay. And do you see a shift in like the collective consciousness like over the last 2 decades? I mean,
I see that a lot of people can't sleep.
yeah.
When I was doing one-on-one consultations, which was the first 10 years of my business, we didn't have any products. It was just me seeing clients one-on-one.
Right.
I don't think sleep was even a part of the conversation very much. That's
Yeah.
been a huge change.
Yeah.
I think that taking pills aren't always the answer, and that sometimes that can lead to side effects.
Yeah.
So people are looking for something natural that's effective
Mm-hmm.
and safe.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the introduction of all the technologies that we love, right? Like
Yeah.
cell phone and computer and all of that stuff. I think that has created more of a challenge for us. Not just, I mean, there's two levels. One is there's just a lot of waves. There's a lot of invisible waves that we can't see.
Mm-hmm.
There's the Wi-Fi waves and the cellulite waves. That's funny.
Kind of looks
the cellular waves that might cause cellulite. I don't know. But there's like a tremendous amount of invisible waves. And then when you look at like Wi-Fi networks, there's like tons around, right? And like there's like all kinds of frequencies moving through space that we can't see.
Yeah.
And we don't know how that affects our body long term.
Yeah.
And now they want to change to 5G, which actually there are like lengthy studies showing that it's very harmful for the health.
Yeah.
So when you fast forward in your imagination of the future, and I see all these young kids, like just yesterday I was walking in Topayo and I saw this family with like 3 to 4 children that were around the ages between 7 and 10.
Yeah.
Every single family member had a phone and they were on it. Like every single little kid and mom, dad, everybody was on the phone. So even when I just like hold my phone and then my joints kind of start to hurt and I feel that kind of weird energy coming from the phone, makes you wonder what the future generations will, what will happen and what they'll need to balance their body. So I think personally, we're already to the point of in humanity where everyone should just baseline be on flower essences, because we're going to need an equal and opposing force of an infusion of positive energy, right? Because all the waves that we're subjecting ourselves are not, they're not health inducing.
Yeah.
Whereas sitting outside under a tree is health inducing. It's a different kind of wave. So there's that. And then there's also just like the distraction factor. It's made everybody's minds busy. So there's probably a lot more people who are headed for trouble. And then there's a certain portion of the population that has become much, much, much more devoted and open and committed to awakening. So I see those two things happening. I know some people are like, oh, we just keep getting better and better and better. And we're like going from the 4th dimension to the 5th dimension and everybody's going to like wake up. And honestly, I'm not, I look around sometimes and I'm not so sure about that. And I see these old guys in the Hawker Center and I'm like, my God, like this is Singapore's like most valuable resource is like all the elders here, who have the special recipes and they know all the medicinal soups and all the bone broth before bone broth was cool.
I know.
And the, precise, just like grandma's recipes.
Yeah.
And like, bathing with that water in the pot that you leave full of the water and you like, that's so much better for the body. Like they know all the secrets, even though they weren't like trendy things. And then I just wonder like, where are we going? Like certain inefficiencies will occur and I'm thinking, So I can see both, there's people who are like really making strides and then, going to hell in a handbasket in certain other ways. So there's a lot of work to be done. It motivates me every day.
Yeah.
It's very motivating to reach more people.
And why do you think like some people don't want to awaken or that.
Because awakening isn't necessarily fun. It's really beautiful, but it's not always fun. It's like when you have something arise between you and someone else that you love, and you got to have that hard conversation.
Yeah,
it's not easy. You have to be vulnerable, like that.
Yeah,
but you're doing that with yourself. And we've never been trained. I mean, I don't think in any culture really we're trained to soften and be compassionate with ourselves.
Yeah.
So what do? We experience some kind of suffering, and then we like try to tamp it down or make it go away.
Yeah.
Or bully it to be quiet. And then at a certain point, we just like try to spend so much time like running away from things that are painful.
Yeah.
So when you say the word awakening, it's like, wow. It's not the easiest thing in the world, right?
Yeah.
So
I think a lot of people, it seems easier to just run away or to pretend that it doesn't exist or to just distract themselves. I mean, I know how it feels, right? I still do it sometimes. I mean, it seems easier, but then it gets to a point where you can't run away anymore, or like it manifests in the body as disease, you know? I mean, if people tell me like, no, it doesn't, it does. It really does. I feel like, and then the body will send a signal because it's like, I can't handle this anymore. And it comes out in pain or inflammation. And sometimes it's even far worse than that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that having a tool like flower essences, I mean, if people are continually more and more open to practices like meditation, in which they are being able to observe their own minds and patterns and behavior, then, you know, all the more openness to things like flower essences that are almost almost like a more effortless way of doing that kind of work.
I have a friend whom I introduced LOTUSWEI Elixirs to, and she said they're so easy. Like, so she's a Reiki friend of mine. She practices Reiki as well, but there's just times when you're like, I don't want to do anything. But with the flower elixirs, you just put in your water, you put it in your coffee, you put it in your juice, and then you take it, and that's it. And things just slowly unravel and slowly shift, and it's just so powerful and yet so gentle and so powerful at the same time. And I'm like, everybody needs this. Everybody. Yeah. And so that friend is hooked now. Yeah. So it's amazing when I hear stories like that, right?
It reminds me of the story of someone that I know that took our flower essences and then stopped and then said, no, like I can't do this. It makes me feel things.
Really?
Yeah, which I thought was really interesting. It's like, I prefer to just shut that all down.
Yeah, but
that's the part that's kind
of
that makes you feel things.
Yeah, it does. And it can be scary because then you have to confront yourself. I mean, sometimes it can be intense. Yeah. But I mean, in my personal experience, like, I'll take it because like I feel when I come out from the other side, it's so much better. Like, at least that's the case for me. I mean, I know that when you're going through it, it can be unbearable and so uncomfortable and intense, and you just want it to end, right? But eventually passes. It does. And for me, like with working with, I think it was desert milkweed. It was just interesting because I normally don't get such a strong reaction. I'm not saying that desert milkweed caused it, but I think that it definitely brought some things up that needed, to kind of
Erupt.
erupt. And I remember it was like 2 days of like craziness, right? And I was just thinking like, oh my God, like, do I need to be medicated? I mean, not that I've ever been, I do not know what it feels like, but I mean, it made me think like, oh wow, like, is this how people who are depressed feel? And I don't know, it just kind of just sharing, my sister does have anxiety. I mean, she's not medicated or anything, but like she does see a therapist, and I've seen her through some really like, tough times. And like when I went through those 2 days of like, I'll just call it insanity, right? Like it kind of, it gave me like the compassion to really understand what it kind of, I was like, oh wow, is this what it feels like? And I would never have been able to have any kind of understanding if I didn't go through like that anxiety that I was feeling those 2 days, where I felt like everything just felt like too much, and I had pneumonia. I was so stressed, and I was worried about like work in the office. I mean, like my full-time job, and it was also because desert milkweed is about like feeling like your environment supports you, and I was not feeling supported, or like, and then it made me think like, am I supporting myself? Because I tend to be a bit of like, I can be a bit of like an OCD freak, and I like things to be perfect. And like if I'm working with someone who's not like supporting me, then I tend to kind of go over and beyond. But then at some point it's like, you just burn out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I was going through it, and then it just made me think like, wow, to have that compassion for people who are suffering. I mean, it may not be like a physical thing, and suffering in just any way. And it was, I don't know, it just, something shifted for me, and I thought it was quite a profound moment for me. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think that's when the greatest change takes place. It's when we have this like really rough times. Unfortunately.
Yeah, but I don't know, for me, I'm like, I'll take that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's worth it. You realize how strong you are, and you realize how like elastic your capacity is.
Yeah.
Not easy though.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Gives us a chance to put into practice tools.
Yeah.
Constant awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Staying with ourselves.
Yeah. That I think it's been like a constant practice for me. I mean, I think when I first started like taking flower elixirs, when I first started my Reiki journey, because it was about the same time in 2015, and I noticed it used to be like this. When is it going to be over? Like, why am I still stuck in this pattern? Like, why? Like, why am I still angry? Why can't I make it go away? And then now I've noticed that I don't say I want to make it go away. I mean, yeah, I don't like that I'm suffering, but I'm like, I'm just going to sit here with this. Yeah. I don't have those thoughts of, I noticed that I don't have those thoughts of like, I want it to go away. Like, it's just, I'm going through this and just being with it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's almost like the alchemical process happening. It's like somebody added some powder that's changing your form.
Yeah.
It's like the butterfly liquefying into the caterpillar liquefying into water, right?
Yeah.
So you just take it more willingly.
There's more spaciousness. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I have the capacity to just kind of be with whatever arises in that moment.
Exactly. And I think the next step, that is the practice constantly. And at a certain point, when we feel stabilized enough to allow those things to come up, then we can actually start using that energy, like using the energy of anger and using the energy of sadness and using the energy of nervousness in order to propel us forward into like a wilder version of ourselves.
Yeah. You've been practicing meditation for like almost 2 decades now.
Almost, yeah.
When you first started and like where you are now, like how has that shifted? Like, what was it like when you first started? And I just love to hear more about like
my own meditation practice.
Yeah, and like why you think people need to meditate, or the importance of.
In the beginning, I went to the center a lot more. I relied on my teachers a lot more. I spent a lot more time with teachers. My practice sessions were usually from 2 to 3 hours a day.
Wow.
But now I haven't made the luxury of that time for my practice. Just because, seeing the business as my practice is really like practice in action.
Yeah.
I would say my practice has transitioned from, I'm going to do it from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and then the rest of the day I'm just going to be a mess to, like coming back as much as often as I can. So like, remember how I was saying I was standing at the light, feeling the heat burning my skin, observing myself getting impatient, like that type of awareness.
Yeah.
Much more coming back to that as many times as I can during the day.
Right.
So it becomes more like meditation in action.
Yeah.
And I guess I would say it's more in some ways it's more intense, in some ways it's less intense. In the beginning, I have a very close relationship with my what we call like root teacher. In the beginning it was like extremely hard because, how to explain it? In the beginning there's a set of practices called Nudra, which is it's basically purification practices from past, present, everything, body, speech, mind, everything we've ever done that wasn't so nice. So you can speed that up.
Right.
So for example, when I did this practice called Vajrayana, every time I did the practice in the morning, by like 2, 3 in the afternoon, I knew that something randomly would just like set me off and I'd become extremely angry or upset. So it's like the power of the method.
Yeah.
Like if you have a method that really works. So in some ways it's like less intense because a lot of that has been worked through and there's just like a stronger, more stable baseline.
Yeah.
But then in other ways, the challenges that I face are like also like upping the ante a little bit, like owning a huge building and being responsible for more people. And there's like a different kind of intensity that comes with the challenges that I choose. So does that answer?
Yeah.
It's like as they say in Thailand, same but different. But I do rest very firmly on the experience of just knowing that the methods that I use work.
Okay.
So even if I struggle, I can like remember that the methods I use work and I'll come out on the other side.
Right. And what do you think some of the biggest misconceptions that people have around meditation?
Yeah, to put it plainly, the perfection of like, I'm going to sit here and my mind's going to be completely blank.
Yeah.
That's not the nature of the mind.
Yeah.
That's not how the mind works. Mind is very busy all the time, looking for things, past, present, future, mostly past, future.
Yeah.
And I think that people oftentimes think meditation is like a mind practice, like a mental, intellectual practice.
Yeah.
I tend to think of it more as like embodiment now. It's like, when are you actually hearing the sounds? Like we're sitting here doing this recording.
Yep.
But there's like people banging doors outside in the hallway.
Yeah.
And you can hear some of the street noise through the door down the hall. Yeah. That's like just sound awareness. There's spatial awareness. There's things we see. There's the way your body feels. Like everybody listening right now, like notice if there's any tension in your shoulders. And the moment you place your attention your shoulders already start to relax a little.
Yeah.
So I always say, like, one of the secrets I discovered is that the observation is the dissolution, which simply means that by looking at something, it automatically starts to change and shift. So that's one of the like awesome things about flower essences is really they're not like doing the heavy lifting. You're doing the heavy lifting. Flower essences are just like shifting your gaze so you can see something.
Yeah.
It's like, oh wow, I'm really impatient. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So in the same way, when you observe a particular pattern, it changes.
Yeah.
Meditation is not about like a cushion or incense or being in a quiet place or having 2 hours of time or flashing lights or out-of-body experiences. It's simple. It's seemingly like, what good is this going to do me?
Yeah.
I'm going to sit on the floor for 5 minutes. Like, huh? And the only way, you know what the catch is? The only freaking way that you know if meditation actually works is by doing it. I think I said yesterday, the only people who are bad at meditating are the people who don't even try.
Yep.
Have to try it, even if it, and I think people think, oh my God, I've got to take like a course and it's going to be this really complicated thing. And I've got to visualize I'm in this field of flowers and everything's so peaceful.
Yeah.
Because I'm a mess, because I'm freaking insane, right? Because my life is full of crap, but I'm going to just like pretend that that's not meditation.
Yeah.
Meditation is like, God dang it, I didn't finish the laundry and the kids made a mess and I'm super frustrated and I wasn't the best mom today because I screamed at the little one. And then I, like looking at ourselves, having compassion, seeing all of those things, and then using it to fuel us forward into a different way. And it's being a way of being and a way of life and a lifestyle. That's meditation. That being said, it's not just an intention to be better.
Yeah.
It's unhooking the awareness from our mental, chattery monkey mind into other things. Like, I like to use the senses. Like, what do you hear? What do you feel? Anytime the mind is da 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 da, noticing it.
Yep.
And not letting your emotions and your thoughts take charge of the choices that you make. There is a greater, grander awareness. It's the one who's looking at the thoughts.
Yeah.
That is the extremely wise being. And and the thing I like to just like always come back to is that each of us as a human being has a tremendous capacity that we don't even know is there. There's like this huge closet full of gifts and treasures that if we just tap into it, it's there. And those treasures come in the moments where the spacious awareness lies, not in the thinking and figuring it out. But I fall subject to that all the time. Oh, I think I can figure this out by thinking about it.
I think we all do. Yeah. I think a lot of people, like even for myself, like way back, I thought that meditation was about clearing the mind. No. I feel like the more, especially when you're in it and the more you try and clear the mind,
the more it pushes back.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a challenge. So for anybody who's listening, if you can think of, something that you're either trying to decide between this one or this one, or you have a big challenge or something that's really bugging you. Here's one way to apply meditation to that particular thing to make it useful. Go to the park or sit under a tree or go outside and sit in nature. And then hold in your intention to, your intention is to find a solution or a decision or a point of clarity around that situation. Okay, you made the intention. Now drop it. Now just sit under the tree and allow the lusciousness of the breeze to hit your skin and all the little hairs on the back of your neck and see all the leaves fluttering and notice the flowers and look at the sky and notice the space in between all of the objects and notice how awesome it is to have a body and where you feel tense and tired and fatigued and where you feel energy and notice the smells in your environment. Allow the environment to like infuse you with its abundance and lusciousness. Just sit there for like 10 minutes. Lo and behold, probably around like minute 9.5, something will like bing pop into your mind and you're like, oh, I could try this. That's it. Like that's accessing your greatness.
Wow.
By sinking into spacious awareness and unhooking from the figure it out mental mind.
I love that. I think it's so easy to just sit outside or on a tree, like you said. 5 minutes. I mean, that's what I do, because where I work, where my office is, I have a garden, and I go there every day. And every day I notice something different. Like the other day, I noticed there were, amongst the bamboo, was a bird's nest. And I don't know, little things like that. Something else that flower elixirs have helped me, I mean, kind of not help, but a quality that I noticed that is kind of brought up, is that kind of connection with nature. I mean, I never used to be that nature person. I mean, yeah, I appreciate like the beauty of a sunset or like the waterfall and something pretty. But now it's like I notice everything, every small thing. It doesn't have to be something grand. It's just a normal tree by the side of the road. And there's this deep appreciation. And I'm just like, how did I not see this before? And little things really get me excited. Like today, I noticed ladybirds, and I'm going to post a photo later on Instagram so that you can see. But I don't really notice. I mean, I've never really seen ladybirds in Singapore. Maybe I just haven't opened my eyes big enough. I'm not sure, but like they don't seem to be around here. And today I saw them and I was just so excited. I took like a million photos. And just spending 5 or 10 minutes outside, I don't know, I just find like I start to relax more. The tension just kind of like melts away. And I'm not kind of stuck in my mind. It's like just enjoying what's in front of me. And yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think that we forget that the earth and the plants are our allies.
Yeah.
Right? Like we live in this paradise that you walk by a tree and it cleans all of your impurities. You walk by a bush and it cleans all of your stress. So the fact that we're surrounded by these things that are seemingly inanimate, but they are living and our allies, like they're helping us in every moment, it just kind of revitalizes the world around us and makes those 5 or 10 minutes that you spend in nature meaningful. It's like you can go to the altar of the earth and be like, what do I do about this? Or help me figure this situation out. Or, you going to the ocean every day saying like, all right, I'm here, Singapore. If you want what I have, I'm here. Like, this is my intention. I want to help lots of people. Ocean, earth, sky, like, can you help me make it happen, or help me see where to go to facilitate that if it wants to happen? There's a nice feeling of interconnectedness.
Yeah. Love that. So you've been in Asia for the last, is it almost 2 months? 1.5, 2 months. And it's no secret that you love Asia, right? I'd love to hear, like, what is it about Asia that, like, you love so much and that's different from, like, what you have back home in the US? Yeah.
Things make sense to me more here in some ways.
Yeah.
I mean, and when you say Asia, like, obviously, like, my God, like, Japan is so different from Singapore. It's so different from Taiwan. Is so different from Korea. And so there's in India. And but as a whole, I don't know, it's like little things like taking off your shoes before you come in the house, to the depth of sincerity that passes between two people. There's less talking. There's less superficiality. there's less energy expenditure. It's just like, this is who I am. And it's like there's like a transmission of language from heart to heart that I resonate with more. The food's amazing.
It is. I mean, not because I'm biased, but yeah.
The culture is amazing. Like the traditional culture. I mean, I think, unfortunately, what I see is that the United States of America is really pushing culture in Asia, which I find really sad and disturbing. Like, Asia's becoming more like the US. There are things about the US that I absolutely adore and love, like ingenuity, innovation, entrepreneurship, independence, like being wild and different and creative.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's a lot of cultural things that, are coming this way. But bottom line is, people in Asia, I don't know how to describe it, just seem more like in touch with their hearts and just kind of more real and authentic and sincere. There's less like mucky muck.
Mucky muck.
My beloved American brothers and sisters, we have just like more kind of mucky muck going on.
Okay.
There's more sharpness and clarity here.
Really?
Not too much, like not thinking too much. I mean, we're all human, we all do it, but things just seem more clear here. We can come back to that one.
What are some things about flower essences, the stories that you've heard, or that continue to surprise you? Like,
rather than go into like really specific stories, I would say what continues to surprise me is the fact that with the continual effort of just putting little nectar drops in your mouth a few times a day, that it can absolutely shift and transform someone's life. Most people who are on flower essences, if you look at a group of 1,000 people and you say have 250 people who are using flower essences regularly, you could pick out which ones. You can see it in their face. They look younger. There's a vibrancy. There's a radiance. And, rather than tell stories about, specific things that happened, I think the thing that just continues to shock me is how it is the depth of transformation that can occur over time, which is such a simple thing that takes less than 2 minutes a day.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Flower Evolution program.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, what inspired you to offer the program?
I was interested in putting together a community of people who were really like very devoted to their own personal growth. And so each month we send out a different flower elixir that can't be found anywhere else, and sort of like facilitate shifts and changes in the collective. And that's been really fascinating to me.
And how do you go about like selecting the flower essences?
It's an intuitive process. I don't think too much about. I've come to trust it. Let's put it that way. I've come to trust this quick intuitive process of putting together the elixirs. Usually we do it twice a year, and we'll like line up 6 months worth. And every time it seems to be totally right on. Whether it's, none of this is taken into account. It's just an intuitive process. But then later we find out it just feels right for the astrology, for the cosmos, for what's happening culturally, for what people are experiencing, what my friend experienced, what she feels and he feels. And it kind of becomes more and more apparent that each month it's just the right thing that we need an extra little shot or infusion of to balance us out.
Yeah. And I've noticed, being in the program with the group, because we have for those of you who are in the program, we have a private Facebook group where it's more intimate, where we share things that we're going through, like some really amazing stories, amazing things that happen, or things that we're struggling through. And I've noticed that there is like a common theme that comes up, right? It's different. We're all going through our own lives and whatever we're going through, but there seems to be like a common thread, like for that particular month, and it kind of blows my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, and the sequencing of it is also what surprises me. It's like peeling off the layers of an onion. You peel off one, and it's like everybody gets to the end of this month, and everybody just sort of seems teed up and ripe for like a different sort of experience that comes the next month.
Yeah.
Which is kind of fun.
It is.
Yeah, and we have a new aspect coming into the Flower Revolution program now, which is that we're introducing creature essences, which is very sort of out of the box for us even. Something that we'll try in the next 6 months. We'll be introducing like scorpion and crab and sea anemone and different creature essences. No one was harmed in the making of the essences. But this is a new concept for us, so we're going to try that within the Flower Revolution program.
Let's hear more about it.
Yeah, so to start the 6-month cycle in August, we're going to be working with redwood tree. Then after that, starflower. And then that's where the creature essences come in. And this isn't in the right order, I don't think, but butterfly, actually it is in the right order. So butterfly is third. Yeah. Butterfly is about not getting too fixated on one thing, like the ability to observe the things within yourself with like a touch and go, joyful, free attitude. Also about maximizing resources. If you think about that caterpillar liquefying, needs to maximize its understanding of nutrients and vitamins and minerals, and in order to be able to transform. Month 4 is about the scorpion, so it's about carrying poison and becoming really familiar with the underworld of ourselves, with speaking our most powerful expressions, with transmuting sexual energy into creative energy, and anything you could imagine about scorpion. After that comes the crab, which is lives in the tide pools in Costa Rica. Interesting cycle, 12 hours of the day. It's like pulled back into a little hole inside the ocean, and then the rest of the 12 hours it comes out and emerges out into space. So it's about recognizing your interconnectedness with everything and then using that energy to bring your gifts into the world. Sea anemone is another crazy one. When you touch them, they're super sensitive, and the quality is about enhancing our sensitivity to help us be more skillful in life. That's kind of the quick lowdown.
I'm excited. Very excited. So what inspired you or what motivated you to introduce creature essences this upcoming cycle?
Just seemed right. Seemed like the right timing to do something kind of crazy and push the limit a little bit, push the boundary a little bit for us.
And what has your experience been between the flower elixirs and the creature elixirs? Are they same? Are they different? What has your experience been?
The similarity is the gentleness and subtlety, tenderness. The difference is like imagine you, like if you close your eyes and imagine that you are a rose, feels a certain way, and then imagine you are a scorpion. It's like just like completely different quality, right?
Yeah.
So it's like embodying those qualities. I think creatures seem to be like a little bit more magnified in our awareness.
Right. When I think about the scorpion, it kind of scares me a little bit. Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. But I'm up for it. So can we expect more of such combinations in the future for flower evolution? How do you feel about
Yeah,
it?
I mean, at least if the community is loving them, if the community is open to it, if it feels like it resonates with everyone, sure, why not?
Yeah.
If the creatures want to emerge to be tapped into, sure.
So, do you have any last words to share?
I would just encourage people to remember that there is this like endless, vast well of wisdom and insights that resides within you. And the way to tap into that more frequently is to rest your body and rest your mind. Rest, not meaning like lay in bed and lounge and watch Netflix, although that's fun too. But try to spend 5-10 minutes in nature, in a park, under a tree, even just sitting on the curb in a parking lot. Like, it doesn't really require much to notice what your body is experiencing, to notice what your emotional landscape is like, to be open to becoming your best friend. And in the moments where you can unhook your mind into a more spaciousness, you can have more access to that. Those tremendous, wild, powerful qualities that you have that you may not have so readily at the tip of your fingertips always. Do you have any last words of wisdom? Anything you find yourself commonly telling others, or something that springs to your mind?
I think the thing for me that I find powerful is just spending 5 to 10 minutes in nature. You know, it's a lot can shift, a lot can, I mean, it's just amazing. Like, really connecting with nature, connecting with yourself. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be like anything fancy. I used to think like, oh, I need to travel somewhere else, you know, because Singapore is, I mean, it's not like the US where you have like the woods or like the forest to like walk through. I mean, and I used to be envious of people who had that, but I started to realize that no, I can just go downstairs, right? I mean, I say go downstairs because most of us are in buildings, just for reference.
Right. It's like New York, high rises and apartments.
And yeah, sitting on a bench, listening to the trees sway, rustling in the wind. I mean, yeah, rustling in the wind. It's magical. Yeah. So spend more time in nature.
Yeah. Magic shows up when you look for it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Flowerlounge Podcast. It's such a joy. And
thank you for having me.
Lots of love from Singapore.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to the Flower Lounge. I'm Katie Hess, and we'll be releasing a new podcast every Wednesday. If you like what you heard, or you know someone who might be touched by our conversation, share it with them. And don't forget to subscribe. To find out what your favorite flowers mean about you, take the quiz at LOTUSWEI.com.